Well, this was breaking last hour. Stunning new numbers from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. The department says that the United States added 818,000 fewer jobs than initially reported. That was between March of 2023 and 2024. And that makes the largest downward employment revision in 15 years. More than 800,000 jobs just vanished, just like that, in what appears to be a sign of a weak and vulnerable job market. Hello, everyone. This is Outnumbered. I'm Kayleigh McEnany, live at the Democratic National Convention, joined by my co-host, Harris Faulkner, also here in Chicago, and Emily Campagno, live from our couch in New York City. Also joining us from the DNC, Fox News contributor and former senior counselor to President Trump and host of Here's the Deal with Kellyanne on Fox Nation, Kellyanne Conway, and Fox News senior political analyst, Juan Williams. But first, Brian Brenberg, co-host of the Big Money Show of Fox Business. Perfect guy to talk to. Brian, what's going on?
Kayleigh, this is a huge revision. We were thinking it might come in near 1 million, and it did. That's 68,000 fewer jobs on average than was reported. Okay, why does that matter? We've had this gap between how people feel about the economy and what the numbers supposedly say. And what we're finding is that gap is shrinking in the direction of how people feel. So when you get those monthly numbers, the one thing you got to remember is their estimates, okay? They're based on surveys. When a politician tells you, here's a number, you can say, well, I think I'll wait for the actual number to come in. And in some cases, it may take a year or more for us to learn that.
It's stunning that 1 million jobs just vanished. And a quick follow-up to you, there are a lot of Americans out there with credit card debt that have wanted to purchase a car, Gen Z voters out there wanting a starter home, but they can't because of interest rates. What does this do to interest rates?
Well, by the way, what it means is there's 1 million jobs that the government said we got that we didn't get, okay? That's the key here. But what it means is this job market is not as strong as we thought, and so that credit card debt, that auto loan debt, that home debt, all of that needs to be paid off, there are fewer jobs we're holding to do that. That makes people very nervous, and that means that the consumer's probably more stretched than they're saying we are.
Wow, Brian Brenberg, it's incredible to watch. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, out to the couch, you know, Juan Williams, one of the big talking points of the left has been jobs. And here's Kamala Harris, just Friday.
So when President Biden and I took office, we decided to invest in the working people of America, to create millions of jobs.
Today, by virtually every measure, our economy is the strongest in the world. We have created 16 million new jobs.
You know, Juan, is that a talking point we're going to continue to hear?
Oh, I think so. I don't think there's any debating the idea that this is the best economy in the world. But I would, you know, as we look at this revision, and as you just heard from Brian, it's a revision that's done annually. Everybody revises during that period. It's still the case that on a monthly basis, we've been adding about 250,000 jobs per month, and the unemployment rate is 4.3%, which is near a record low. So on all those measures, plus the fact that the stock market is near a record high, you'd have to say, boy, this is a great economy. It's not good news to see jobs going down, but I do think it means that when you hear from the Fed Secretary Jay Powell, he's going to speak Friday in Jackson Hole, Wyoming. He's more likely now with these numbers to say, you know what, maybe the economy could use a little bit of a spur by lowering the interest rates. And that's just good news for people who do business in America, for people in terms of credit card debt. It's just good news if you want to buy a house. So, there's lots of complexity to the picture, but it's not a gloom and doom story.
Kellyanne, but here's how Americans actually feel about the economy. I mean, we have the numbers. We'll pull it up. We have a Fox poll. We have a Gallup poll, and they're not feeling good. Fox, 73% of registered voters describe the economy as only fair or poor. Also 51% of Democrats, by the way. And you go over to Gallup, 70% of Americans believe the economy is getting worse. No one wants the economy to get worse, but Americans feel that it is.
They do, Kayleigh, and no one wants the government lying to them that the economy is not as poor as they feel it is around their kitchen tables and their water coolers at work. So Juan is mistaken for a couple of reasons, respectfully. One core reason is that the government just lied to the American people. And now if Powell goes ahead and cuts rates, he's going to look political this close to Election Day, even though he doesn't want to look political, and everybody claims the Fed is not political. Of course it is at its core. We've been saying for a long time, Kayleigh, that when you look at the headline data, it seems really promising, and that if you look at the core CPI and some of the underlying factors, there's a lot of softness there. Now you have a government admitting, oops, sorry, first we lost 240,000 unaccompanied minors. Now we lied to you about close to 1 million jobs that weren't really there. You can't just do that. And the CBO came out a couple months ago and said, oh, you know what? The national debt is about 1.8 trillion more than we expected. Guys, these are real numbers. This is real pain people are feeling every single day. And it's relevant because the same government that's lied to you about the job creation is now going to cut rates. And Kamala Harris is going to benefit. She's going to say, wow, look at this booming economy ever since I became the nominee, even though I never said a word about the economy.
Yeah, I mean, and Emily, when you dig down into these details, I'm looking now, you have about half of these were in the professional and service industries, makes you think about no tax on tips. Manufacturing down 115,000 they were off by. And then the preliminary and finalized data doesn't come until February of 2025. That's after the election.
And you contrast, as Kellyanne brought up, the headlines, right? Those small, short talking points by the left, the sound bites that they like to tout that is magnified by the mainstream left-wing media. But the realities are more like what we saw at the RNC when Sarah Workman got up on stage and talked about how she has to hold down 2 jobs as a single mother to make ends meet. We've talked about on this network that the same group that runs the economic hotline throughout the country that sounded the alarm before the last housing crisis recession is sounding the alarm now and saying that there are millions of families that have assets, that have employment, and yet cannot stretch their money to cover their bills. We cover as well how the average American salary right now is not enough to purchase a house. The interest rates are absolutely precluding people from entering this housing market, and that's just sort of the tip of the iceberg. So when we are told everything is fine, nothing to see here, that is not how the majority of Americans feel, and it has been under the watch of the person running for president on the left.
You know, Harris, you've got a jittery market we've seen at times. It rebounded. You have these jobs, and you have high interest rates, and then you have advantage Trump on the economy. We'll put up the polls. Harris.
Look, if they continue to do the same things, it's going to be really hard to turn this around before the election in November. And as you look at these voters saying that Trump better to handle the economy, that's not going to change because their policies aren't changing. So even if you lowered the interest rates in the next 15 minutes between now and November, that doesn't touch the prices that people pay for the things that they eat. I hit the streets of Chicago to talk to people who live here about what matters most to them. And one of the main issues was jobs. And what they were telling me is, you know, Kamala Harris, and some of them like her, they weren't really clear why she keeps saying that so many jobs were created under the Biden-Harris administration. They understand the economy a little bit better than what people give them credit. Just watch this. This is Austin.
I do, and I think, you know, like even after COVID, right? A lot of people were laid off during COVID. Like when all those people got fired, and then you bring 3 million people back, you're not adding 3 million new jobs to the economy. You're still down. Well, if I had $1,000 in my pocket and I lost that $1,000, and then I found $500 on the ground, I'm not up $500. I'm still down $500.
I'm telling you, Kayleigh, everybody on the panel, they understand this. People understand what's missing from their pocketbooks. And he had a real life example there. I think it's going to have to be more than just a sleight of hand that Democrats are going to do. They're going to have to fix this economy that they broke coming out of the Trump administration before November. It's a hat trick. I'd like to see it.
Me too. That Austin, he's a smart guy here.
Yeah, they all are. I had such a good time talking to people.
Awesome. Love seeing it.
Hey everyone, I'm Emily Campagno. Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kayleigh McEnany on Outnumbered every weekday at 12 p.m. Eastern, or set your DVR. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page for daily highlights.